chemtrails, child, animal and planet abuse, geoengineering, alternative energy, disclosure, prison planets, Agenda 21, drones, biometrics. This is CMR, Critical Mass Radio, leading the way to stopping the control with proactive hosts, shows and solutions, and informative groundbreaking guests. Critical Mass Radio, the People's Station. Now, it's our turn.
Hello, good evening and a very warm welcome. This is Andy Peacher with Kevin Ball. This is The Earth Needs Rebels. It's Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Hello, how are you doing? Thanks, Rob there, Freeman, for a wonderful show. I was listening to the tail end of that. Good luck tomorrow, mate. You know we're all on your side, yeah? We'll be thinking about you. We'll just have a little record before we get down to business. Tonight we're having Maggie Tuttle and Kevin Ball. We're talking about the rights of the child, the human rights of the child. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Critical Mass Radio. Now, it's our turn.
Yeah, good evening and welcome. This is the Earth Needs Rebels show with me, Andy Peacher and Kevin Ball. Kevin, are you there, mate? If you want to visit our website, it's freethinkingvoice.org. That's freethinkingvoice.org. Tonight we're talking about the human rights of the child. Kev?
We certainly are, Andy. We certainly are. We're going to try and explore a little bit tonight. A lot of people ask questions about human rights because it's always a bit vague. Everything we tend to read is misinformation. So when people come around to trying to exercise human rights around themselves and around children, it's not really quite as they expect, and there are a lot of barriers to it. So we're going to have a little chat tonight. Maggie's going to explain some of the things she's found, and we're going to see if we can work out between us what would happen around children when we want to try and protect their human rights.
Yeah, at this stage we welcome my old mummy Maggie. Hello, Maggie.
Oh, I'll mummy Maggie you. I'll give you something else when I see you, mate.
Oh, lovely.
Tell him off.
Good evening, Maggie.
Him. Hi, Kevin.
How are you, darling?
Well, I'm always asleep by 9 o'clock because, like you lot sleeping through the night, I'm working through the night. So you're highly honoured to have me sitting here at 9 o'clock, you pair of horrible men.
Oh, bless you, darling. Thank you for coming on.
Right, well, can I say my piece, please?
You go ahead, darling.
Right. I have been researching into the finances that our children are making for governments, etc. And a lot of things I research into, and I know I'm a bit mad at times, but however, if we go to the office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the Convention on the Rights of it says on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography. Those three. On the sale of the children, the child prostitution and child pornography. So if we go down to, let's see, Article 1. Article 1, under the Children's Human Rights, says, state parties shall prohibit the sale of children. Right? Article 2, it says, sale of children means any act or transaction whereby a child is transferred by any person or group of persons to another for money or any other consideration. And then we go to Article 3, and it says, each state party shall ensure that a minimum, the following acts and activities are fully covered under its criminal or penal law, whether such offences are committed domestically or transnationally, or on an individual or organised basis, in the context of sale of children as defined in Article 2, offering, delivering, or accepting by whatever means a child for the purpose of. Now, I think that's all I have to say on that one. Hang on, boys, let me just double check. Yeah, we come down to the Article 8, which I think Kevin wants to discuss. It also says in C, allowing the views, needs and concerns of child victims to be presented and considered in proceedings where their personal interests are affected in a manner consistent with the procedural rules of natural law, providing appropriate support services to child victims throughout the legal process. That's to do with the court. So if we go back, Kevin, Andrew, to the sale of children, it's there in black and white, the sale of children. So now a group of people are the foster agencies or the adoption agencies. And they're all these businesses. They are businesses. They are making millions of pounds a year. I have those figures and facts. So they are selling our children. If the government, Mr. Hemming, MP, said, well, Maggie, he said, government are placing children. And I said, no, if you're placing a child, then the government themselves would place the child via their own social services or whatever. So why do we have all these massive big fostering agencies with different associations and whatever selling the children? And the biggest foster agency in the UK has a turnover of £140 million a year. Now, what is very interesting about this fostering agency was it was started in, I can't say where, it was started some years ago by 2 social workers. Then they wanted to expand and make it bigger, obviously. So they got £35 million to expand a fostering agency. That alone says it all, Kevin. Who on earth in this day and age, or even then, some years ago, can borrow £35 million so that they can sell and traffic and do whatever with our children? It's there. So now, Kevin, I'll turn it all over to you because I know you've got another argument. Your turn.
Maggie, the argument probably supports what you say and explains why, at the same time, what you're describing, you see, to sell children in a business way of selling children. Let's look at what this started off as before we look at the UNCRC. The original concept of adoption was for the state to place, through its local authority, a child into the hands of adoptive parents assessed by social services and the court and the guardians, etc., and experts. And that was, as an original concept, didn't involve, in the very basic form of where it came from, the immense amount of money that we see today that you're talking of, Maggie. What we've got today is something very different that's grown on from the fact that forced adoption has occurred and children are broken completely away from their families, where they can't report back to grandma, granddad, or any family members. The whole rights of those children to have contact with their families is breached. And they have a human right to maintain contact with their families, because in most cases this is potential arguments of potential risk of harm. So no one's harmed the children anyway. These children are the ones that mainly go for forced adoption because they haven't been harmed. They're good quality goods, shall we say, in a commercial trade. And what's actually grown out of it, as you say, are loads of non-state, independent so-called bodies that are involved in what amounts to the trafficking of children now. And how you're describing it is that these organisations are now multi-million-pound organisations. Now, it doesn't matter when you get to a business level like this whether or not there is an amount of money paid for a child, as in a clear sale, or whether or not the state pays millions of pounds out to these organisations to do their job, shall we say. Because the actual gravy train that attracts organisations to get hold of this and to propagate this, the increasing demands for more children that haven't been harmed for forced adoption, is the fact that taxpayers' money is being paid to these independent organisations in vast amounts of money to actually do it. For every child that they adopt, they get paid amounts of money, which is why, as you've described, the organisation involving 2 social workers could obtain funds of 35 million, I think you were referring to set up, or any organisation. No one is going to loan an organisation without a good business plan that kind of money. And the business plan in that type of organisation is a guaranteed money-making operation, because they're functioning as a body under the government that's not part of the government, that is part of the financial racket of what's going off. And if you look further than that, you can look at Slovakia, who are asking questions now as to what's happened, and there are reports of the body that's in charge of monitoring what happens to children internationally to make sure they're not traded, they don't finish up with paedophiles, etc., etc. There are reports now that Slovakia have discovered that the organisation has burnt its records prior to 2002, preventing anyone knowing what they've done with the children altogether. The leader of that organisation has been replaced recently, and they can't account for where the Slovakian children are globally. All they know, there is a hot spot with a lot of Slovakian children turning up in Italy, but the records of the organisation that was set up to protect the children have been interfered with by itself. That on its own, Slovakia are now taking that through their own government human rights side to try and address this for the children. So we can see that all of the organisations in one way or another are making a lot of money, and they're willing to burn their records if they start to get looked into. Now, to take it beyond that, Maggie, that is a gravy train. And it's a gravy train of money being made that the people involved in making the money don't want to lose. And they want it to get bigger. So everyone that's on the gravy train will load everything that's happening towards continuing the gravy train for whatever way they can to propagate this further, because it's a business. It's no longer acting in the interests of children, it's using children as a commodity, and it is selling them, because at the end of the day, these companies are making money, Maggie. Do you see what I mean on that side?
Yeah, but also, don't forget, not only the money, our children create, I should say, well over 1 million jobs or more, because if you take into account the whole social workers at the civic centres, and you take in all the medical people and the lawyers and the courts, all these people wouldn't have jobs, or most wouldn't have jobs anyway, if there wasn't so many children stolen. Now, what I'd like to... no one's given me an answer to this. Government say 65,000 children are taken into care every year. So 65,000 children. So how, from 65,000 children, does one agency, foster agency, have a turnover of £140 million? The next biggest agency has a profit of 54.2 million. Then we have Bernardo's, the charity, well, we all know what they are. They have also a turnover of, I think it's £170 million. Then take into consideration thousands of foster agencies and adoption agencies making, some are still making £1 or £2 million a year. Some are making many, many thousands, creating jobs. How is all that done from 65,000 children a year? How?
Miss Tuttle, I did give you my answer, which is probably the answer, really. We haven't had any independent proof, though. You've only got to divide the children to the money. It means it's a big scandal. You know, is it possible, like I suggested, that children are being claimed for in one area by the same agency, and then the same children, they're claiming the same amount of money in another area? to central government to make all these big figures.
So
What do you think?
They could be claiming 10 times for one kid because you've got all the offices throughout the country. Yes. Yeah, there's a good point, but again, we need evidence. But
yeah, it's getting to the bottom of the evidence of what's going off is the problem, and the problem with this as well, because it's not transparent. The accounts and the finances of everything that's going off here is not transparent at all. In many ways, that's covered in secrecy as well. You can't easily get to the bottom of it. You can look at the overall maths like you and Andrew have just done and said, well, this can't possibly add up, which is evident. There's something awfully wrong. But the way money is allocated to independent organisations like this is not necessarily per child. It may be allocated in other ways as well. And when that happens, it camouflages the actual amount of money per child that is actually being allocated if you costed it and divided it between the children. So once you create a gravy train, there's many different ways to get money from central government, which is taxpayers' money, from the gravy train. Now,
sorry, go on, Kevin.
If you're a charitable organisation, for instance, then in order to obtain funding from central government, you have to fulfil certain goals for that amount of money in fitting the roles necessary for getting that funding from central government. So all the while, there's different packages with central government that these organisations are obtaining money from that add up to the major amount. But the rationale for paying the amount of money is to actually aid this business of child trafficking, but it is not key to per child in any way. There's so many different ways of accessing funding from central government with charities and with these independent bodies that it's not as simple as being per child being adopted. It is really an awful gravy train, and if we could get the full figures, hopefully we can over time, we will be able to show just how much taxpayers' money is being circumnavigated through this system into private hands around the children.
Sorry, go on, Kev.
Around the children. The other side of the coin, to what you said earlier, when you referred to the human rights under the UNCRC, I'm going to read something which is an extract from Ireland's Law Society as an expert opinion on.
But Kevin, can I stop you, please, and just say one thing about sticking to the finances for 1 minute? Is that all right, Andrew?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Well, coming back to how the finances are made, if we have two brothers who's earlier on in the year, I think it was, two brothers who had been moved 144 times in foster care. And how many children are moved from foster to foster to foster? They're moved all the time. Are the foster agencies getting paid every time they move that child to another foster carer? Also with adoption, I happen to be out of the blue, children have been adopted. There's a lot of children who are adopted, then sent back to the adoption agency with, their nuisances or there's something wrong with them. Then they get readopted. So you've got children in the system being moved around continually, and I'm sure that those agencies are getting paid big bucks again for every time they do this. So that's
undoubtedly, you're going to get failed adoptions, you see, and the whole adoption process that child's been through is going to receive funding to the full amount for all of the independent bodies, so-called independent bodies, and everyone that's involved on the gravy train. Now, if that child's adoption then fails at the end of, if we look at it under the placement orders, where you've got a year from the granting of a placing order theoretically to place the child and adopt the child, if that isn't succeeded during that year and everyone's been on that gravy train around that child, then taxpayers' money has been paid through the system to adopt that child and it hasn't been successful. So that child then remains in foster care or finishes up back in foster care When that's attempted again, you've got the whole set of costs all over again.
Yes,
so
that's right.
That's how it multiplies up to massive amounts of money in one area. All you've got to do, because this is all in secrecy, is keep cycling children up and down to make even more money than you would by adopting them once, by keep putting them through the process and failing the adoptions. So it's an advantage for them financially to fail the adoptions once the placement orders are made to a degree in making money in the way that these organisations function. And they're not terribly closely monitored in what they're doing. It's incredible, with it being in secrecy, that it really is a rat's nest of people working together to aid themselves financially as to why this gravy train has grown and grown and grown.
No, it's not a secret. It's not a secret, Kevin. Anyone can find the information. It's not a secret. It's just that the whole system, social services, are a law to themselves. And because it is all in the family courts, it's all so corrupt that there's nowhere. It's like when someone's been defrauded of $1 million or thousands, there's nowhere to turn to for support. I know of families who have paid millions, thousands in the closed family courts and still haven't got anywhere. It's corruption, and it's there, and everyone knows. The government knows it's going on. But they won't do anything because you cannot bring to account the bloody social services, social workers and all of them.
I think it's not just the social workers, it's the local authorities, it's every independent body that's on this. Everyone who is making money out of the child stealing racket is on the gravy train. They're not going to want to give it up. They haven't gone into that because they're caring people. They've gone into it because they're selfish people who want to make money. And that's what's going on. The poor kids we see coming out the other side of this, when they get out the other side, have been terribly harmed mainly. They've had awful experiences, and they despise, in the main, social services and the people around them. There are occasions where there are still some good social workers in there that are trying to do things, but they're being thinned out more and more and more by the process of this gravy train growing. But I wanted to go back to why can you trade in children? Why is this happening? And why can't parents or anyone stop it happening? Because technically, like you read at the start of it, under the UNCRC, it's not allowable, or we think so. And I need to explain this because we're all convinced by the media and the states, we sort of left with a taste that the UN is there and stops all these things happening. It's a marvellous body, etc., etc., etc.
But Kevin, when we want to speak out, there's about 200 or 300 parents in prison at the moment. Well, and I've got a gagging order. We get gagging orders put onto us, and we can't speak out of what's happening to the children.
That's right. But
so this is, again, I'm saying, we write to our MPs, we write to governments, and when something does go wrong, look at the Jimmy Savile thing now. I was told 25 years ago on a girls' night out, my friend, one of the girls there, her brother was a CID officer in Scotland Yard, and she said, oh, Savile and one other, I can't say who, she said the Scotland Yard know what they're doing, but there's nothing they can do until they're dead, because these two guys bring in so many millions of pounds for charities. No wonder the police don't do anything, because they're all into not the police, but the so-called, who I can't say, Savile is one, into children. And they know what's going on. Government know. So what do they do when something comes out, like we have it now all in the news, paedophiles and whatever? Governments go and have more meetings at the taxpayers' expense. It's all money, money, money. They don't give a shit for our children. They really don't. And I said to Cameron, please God, nothing ever happens to your kids.
What you have to understand, Maggie, is you can't do anything about it because you have to have a legal mechanism to do something about it.
No, we need the people out en masse.
Exactly, Maggie. We need the people. Well done, darling.
Bloody lazy.
Look at the legal profession.
You can go and march as much as you like.
No, wait a minute, Kevin. I only found this out yesterday. There's a young lady in Mexico who has written 2 books on the child trafficking, and Mexico into America is horrendous. I mean, it's terrible what's going on there. She found out, she wrote these 2 books, as I say, they're in Spanish, and then what happened, the police took her into prison. They beat her, she went through absolute hell, and the people in Mexico, they rose up. And they demonstrated, and they had to release this woman at the end of the day. But she's written books on the child trafficking. And this is what I'm saying. She was put in prison. She's just one person who wrote a book about trafficking, and the nation came out. Where is our nation? Sitting in the bed watching bloody EastEnders and Coronation Street. What do they care? Nothing.
Well, that's part of it, but Maggie, you also have to understand, in order to change anything, you have to realise not just what harm is being done, but what is wrong that allows that harm to be done. And then you can fight for change, campaign, or do whatever you want, like march, for change, to change the things that are not protecting children, that would protect children. And that's why I need to explain to you the illusion. The reason parents sit back, part of the reason is because they believe human rights protect children when they don't. Right. So they all sit at home watching EastEnders because they think it's all dealt with. And that's what's wrong. Now, if I can just explain this piece, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the UNCRC, I'm going to read just about 6 lines as an expert opinion from the Irish Law Society, which was written in 2005 and is still current today. And this is the situation as far as they're concerned. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, identifies around 40 substantive rights. Some relate to the child as a member of the family, and some relate to the child as an autonomous being. There are potential conflicts in reconciling the rights identified. The Convention is not directly enforceable, and many of the rights are couched in aspirational language and require significant commitment and investment by states to make them realizable. This makes the Convention a source of guidance rather than a source of hard law. So what we're saying is that it's not directly enforceable, it is just a source of guidance, and it is not a source of hard law, the impression we're left with about the UN. And that applies to every single country in the world, because the present stage of the UNCRC is for it to be a reporting stage only. In other words, each state reports on the progress of its incorporation. Now, you need to understand this to understand why the UNCRC is a big white elephant. It's different from ECHR, Human Rights in Strasbourg, and this is the difference. The UNCRC, to be effective, has to be incorporated into domestic law. Then parents, if children are sold or anything that breaches the UNCRC, can engage legal mechanisms to take a case like you would with ECHR externally to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, or in the Human Rights Act internally in the domestic law. At the moment you can't, because it's not incorporated. Now, what this means is that you have no way, if a child is being sold, of exercising that child's rights not to be so, do so under the UNCRC or any other areas of that convention. Now, the reason it's not being incorporated is quite simple. It's because there is not an international court that you can take from each jurisdiction. Each citizen cannot go to an international court and make an application under the UNCRC to take a case there to say my state has breached my child's rights or this child's rights because that court does not exist. Whereas in the ECHR, there is a Strasbourg court, ECHR, and if there is a breach in any state that is signed up to it, then you can take the case straight to ECHR Strasbourg. You won't get, you'll only get just satisfaction at the most, a recognition, and a penalty applied to the country possibly, and financial settlement of some kind, shall we say, through the process. But because it costs the country money on each occasion and reinforces the case law against them, which means more cases will get through, what each country does, because there's an external court, is incorporate that law into their jurisdictional law so they don't get penalised at the European Court. So the only reason they're incorporating human rights into each jurisdiction in Europe is to avoid the penalties that would be there if they didn't, by citizens taking it to ECHR Strasbourg. That's the difference between human rights under the ECHR or the HRA and human rights under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The difference is quite simple. There is no penalty for any state to breach the rights under the UNCRC because there's no court for any citizen to take the child's rights to externally to the country. And you can't do it internally because it's not incorporated. But in the human rights side of ECHR Strasbourg and the HRA, if a state breaches the rights of that child, then anyone with parental responsibility over the child or a guardian can take that child's rights to be heard before ECHR Strasbourg, and that has penalties on the state that's breaching them. Is that understandable that way, Maggie?
Very long and drawn out.
Yeah, we just need to get up, don't we, Maggie?
No, I was going to sleep, actually.
Okay, right.
No, I'm joking.
Don't repeat it.
No, but it goes back to what I said. Unless the people march, it's a no-go, basically. It is.
No, you see, you've got to campaign. If you want, you can't campaign for your rights under the UNCRC because they don't exist.
I know.
So what's the point of campaigning for them? But you can do something under the Human Rights Act and the UN and the European Court of Human Rights, if you understand what I'm saying, because you've got somewhere to take the case. Now, if you're campaigning for children's rights and campaigning to try and stop what's happening, then it's one thing to campaign and march and do this is terrible, and pretty well everyone's being ignored on that. But it's much more powerful if you can campaign for a change that would protect children, if you know what the change is. One of the changes would be if, like ECHR Strasbourg, there was a UNCRC court in the world to take cases to. That would be something to campaign for, because if that court was formed, states would start to not do this anymore, because they would be held accountable by citizens exercising the rights of their children to wherever this court was. That kind of change is a real change that you can campaign for. And you can campaign for it in Europe and globally, because that's what should be happening with the UNCRC.
What I'd like to see also, and I think it would to give the children the rights to be heard without being in fear. Because when any kid is taken into care, they are surrounded by an army of so-called professionals, and that child is put in fear. Now, those children, when they're taken into care, they are interviewed or assessed by themselves. And unless somebody tells the parents or that child, if it's old enough, they're allowed to have an advocate to sit in with them. But the advocate doesn't do anything anyway, because most of the advocates work for charities and they're in cahoots again with the social services. So you've got a poor little kid by himself in a different world doesn't know what's what, and they got no rights to, even if they speak out. Bloody Kafkas. My God, Kafkas, they're a joke. They all need firing them. The kids have no say. They should be able to stand in a court and speak and say what they want. 2 years ago, a little girl or a little boy of 3 told the judge where they wanted to live, and at the age of 3, that child got its wishes. Then another 6-year-old, then you got the Gillick competence rule. So if children were allowed, that would save a lot of time of going to courts and whatever. But no, they're never going to give the rights to the children either, are they?
But that's for the same reason, Maggie. The UNCRC says that the children should have the right to have a voice. Effectively, it's all written within the convention for all this to take place. And the actual in-camera rule breaches the UNCRC itself, stopping the child having a voice. So you can see that they can just carry on doing what they're doing because the UNCRC is not enforceable. So everyone thinks that when they're meeting, they're spending vast amounts of money to come up with these ideas for the UNCRC convention, that something's being done, and they sell it to us believing it is, and of course it isn't, because it's unenforceable. We need a court for people to go to, a UN court like ECHR Strasbourg, where any citizen can exercise the right of children under the UNCRC or themselves directly to a UN court. Then states would conform to it.
Well, how do we do that?
We campaign for it. And if the UN doesn't want it, they don't want human rights. It would be embarrassing for them, Maggie, to go against people campaigning for a UN court.
The only way that's going to happen again is if people come out en masse.
Yes, but do remember, no one's really worked this out. And no one has campaigned for it in any way. We haven't even got a Facebook page that's asking for this. So
well, why don't I don't go on Facebook at all.
Yeah.
So those on Facebook, why don't they do... Andrew, you do a Facebook. You're clever.
Well, maybe tomorrow we'll do it, or we'll at least talk about it.
Well, I'll get you up early in the morning.
Call me about 9 then.
You lazy sod.
If there was a UN court, Maggie, you understand that, say your child...
Why don't we write to MPs and ask for a United Nations court for children's rights?
Absolutely. That will be a way to push forward, getting MPs on side to push for that, because then you've got a real UNCRC.
Have you written to
John? The case to them then. You can take the case of a child to that court if it's placed there, and that would then empower the UN through the UNCRC around children to ensure that children's rights really aren't breached, because there's a consequence to it.
Can you tell John Hemming that?
Yes, I'll have a chat. John will understand this anyway.
Right, well, say I promise I'll tell him before the 20... Is it the 29th he's presenting the bill?
I can't remember the date.
Yeah, 29th or 30th.
Yes.
29th, I think it is. Yeah, well, John needs to know that then, because, I mean, that poor old fella's got so much in his life, and all these thousands of people, the kids who have been taken, that he can't know everything.
It's the 26th for John, I think. By the way, I don't want to give the wrong date. I think it's the 26th. It's a bit earlier than... It's a Friday date anyway, I know that. So
I know. Well, I know there's going to be a hell of a lot of people in the House of Commons supporting him, you know, from the outside.
Let's hope they'll vote. I mean, the inside people vote.
Oh, the MPs. Yeah. I told you so many times, Andrew, we need a book written for who's who to present to every MP, because they don't know each other. They don't know who's... When I said to... I think I said to John Hemming about my MP, David Amis, he was a bit, like, laid back, as if he didn't know him. So, but John needs to know that.
Yeah, at the moment, Maggie, the way the UNCRC is being used around children is this. Because it's really a guidance, as it is at the moment, because it's not enforceable for parents and parents over children's rights, the states are using it, and social services are using it mischievously. They're picking and choosing what they want, And they're saying because the UN says a child's got to have this right, then this child at age 10 or 11 must be put on birth control, must have the right to birth control, must have the right to this. And they're interfering in the normal moral family values by misusing UN policy on the rights of the child to extremes like this, which are not protective of the child in reality, but so-called protection of the child's rights. And that is where it's being misused. And the social services are running around, then if you interfere with that, they're removing the children for forced adoption because you've said no to putting your 10, 11 or 12-year-old on birth control.
I know that. But
So
then it comes back to what I said the other week about the world population, so the control of the children. I mean, when you think about it, there's not thousands of children, or 65,000 in this country. It is millions and millions of children worldwide. Now, I was at a meeting yesterday for the Moosas, and we're speaking to some ladies who are prison visitors. It's an organisation. And then I spoke to another guy today as well, yeah. In the prisons, there are so many Nigerian parents who have lost their children, and they're all in prison. Nigerians. So, what's going on?
There's something awfully wrong in the way they're selecting people. And do remember, we know of cases of people visiting the UK for as little of 8 weeks where they've lost children in the UK when they're not nationals of the UK.
Well, Florence Bellone, the French journalist, did she not write an article last year for the French papers, or one of those papers over in the EU? Do not take your children to the UK. They'll be in jeopardy of being stolen and sold.
I know of personally one case from Ireland where a grandmother took a grandchild to the UK for 8 weeks holiday, and that child was snatched for forced adoption and forcibly adopted after being snatched at the port trying to board the ferry to go back home to Ireland.
Oh, I can believe nothing surprises me in this field of what's happening to children. Do you know, I never thought that I'd get to nearly 70. I thought my age I'd be retiring with my grandson, be going out to the park as grandparents do and that. But no, I never thought that my years, whatever, are left to help the children. And if I can help one child, then I've done a battle.
Also remember that do look at what's going off over human rights. They're trying in the UK. Cameron wants to see the European Court of Human Rights no longer recognised. He wants his own human rights, which means no rights, which means total domination by opinion. And that's it.
I don't think John Hemming will agree with that.
That's what he wants. Now, if he wants that over Strasbourg, then can you imagine how much resistance there is, or would be, to the UN CRC coming into effect in such a way there was an external court? Can you imagine how much he would resist the appearance of an external court that could hold the UK accountable for their actions under the UN?
Yeah.
He'd resist it.
Yeah.
Because they want to have total domination through the establishment of the citizens of the UK, as it used to be hundreds of years ago when we had castles and kings and all that, the old Star Chamber system. It's all going that way with these arrogant, selfish people, judgmental people, who are deluded in thinking they know better than anyone else. Don't know better than anyone else. They're just totally deluded. They're mentally ill, really, to be honest.
No, you know what it is? They're brought up in cotton wool, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. So they're all mates. They all went to probably the same universities or whatever. They don't know what it's like to be a normal person out here in the nation, part of the nation. And I've said to government so many times, the truth lies with the nation, not with you lot who are born and brought up in cotton wool. What do you know? It's like the Minister for Agriculture. He's now the Minister for the National Health. What the hell does he know about the national health when he's been the Minister for the Agricultural thing? So, it's just, they just keep turning all these ministers around, and he's the minister for this and that and that and that. What do they know? Nothing.
Well, that's your clue to what's wrong, because it's not the MPs that have enough understanding. It's the civil service and everything that's underneath that that actually runs the show. If you watch the old Yes Minister stuff and all that, you could see how it was done. It was portrayed quite well in Thatcher's era of how ministers were just given choices to go and do you tick the box this way, that way, or whatever, because they didn't have the skills in the main, not always, but in the main, to be able to do what they needed to do in that particular role at any one time in that office. And what we've actually got, if you think about it beyond that, continuously, regardless of who's in power, we've got that machine behind it all that's really running the show, and that machine behind it all is the establishment. So it's the establishment that run the country, and we're just given an image to believe we're voting people into power that are different. And that's why, no matter what government you vote in today, you get the same.
Well, I wish Guy Fawkes would come back home.
It may be this year by the sounds of the protest going on. I don't know if you picked up anything on that, Maggie.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is now an official coffee break for Miss Tuttle.
Oh, I've got to have something to keep me awake, you guys.
Oh, no, sweetheart.
You go make yourself a coffee. I think Andrew's going to play a little bit of music, aren't you, Andy?
Yeah, if you can mute, please, Maggie.
I don't know how to do that.
Just keep quiet, that's muting.
Oh, all right, okay. I'm going in the kitchen. Goodbye.
Okay. It's the Earth Needs Rebel Show with me, Andy Peach and Kevin Bull. Tonight's special guest is Mrs. Maggie Tuttle. Hello there, Maggie.
No, could you put it right? I'm Miss M.S.
Ms. Maggie Tuttle. And Kevin Bull. Go on, you geezers, carry on.
Kevin Bull, not Bum. It sounds like Kevin Bum.
He's not full of bull, is he? He's full of horns.
Did you get your coffee, Kev?
I've got mine. Maggie, have you got yours?
Yes. The trouble is I haven't got a secretary or servant.
Oh, dear. That's tough at the top, isn't it?
Yeah. So, there.
But, what I was saying, there is a need to know what's wrong, and there is a need to know what to fight for. But can you imagine if all parents across Europe and across the world realised that the UN doesn't work, and fought for correcting it so that we got a UN court to take these cases to, like Strasbourg, then the power goes to the citizen and the child, and they can exercise that and go there. At the moment, the UN empowers the state over the child because it's the state that decides what it does with the UN Convention. Well,
I can't see that. Do you know what? I just find it amazing that under the children's human rights, and yet it's a nothing. It just is a nothing. It's incredible when you think about it.
But it's because everything we watch through the media, everything we see, because we're not trained in law, then we just take it from what we've watched. We believe it, that it's there. And there's nothing to challenge otherwise until perhaps you take a case and you realise, hang on, this is a breach of my human rights in this area of the UN, or my child's human rights in this area of the UNCRC, and only then do we start to ask the question, why is this happening, and what can I do about it? And then you find you can't do anything about it.
No, hang on, Kev. If you write me a letter to Strasbourg from Maggie Tuttle, Ms. Maggie Tuttle, or do it from the charity, Children Screaming to Be Heard, write to Strasbourg and I'd say, this law under the children's human rights is nothing.
But Strasbourg is not the place to write. You need to write to the UN and say that the UN or the UNCRC law is not exercisable by citizens and parents, because we need a court. We need a UN court to take the cases to. Otherwise, the law will not be fully incorporated into the domestic law of the country.
Well, could you, Kate, help me write that letter, please, and I will send it.
Of course we will.
Or you can send it. I don't mind.
No, of course we'll do that. And if you want to campaign for that, then that is something that would really make a difference. And just imagine, if the UN doesn't want that, do they really want children to have human rights?
No. World population.
Get the answer. If they don't go with this, which is empowering them further to have more power, they don't want the citizens and the children to have the rights. They just want the document there for the states. It's like lip service.
Well, unless we write a letter asking for an explanation, and you don't dilly-dally, you write straight to the point, Kev. You know how to do it anyway.
Don't dilly-dally on the way.
Where's he just come from, Kev? I thought he'd gone to bed.
I don't know. I'm beginning to wonder if he's having a party while we're on. You know?
And we'll send a copy to Cameron, not that it does any good with him, or I'll hand it in personally. I'll go down and I'll get I'll phone up the police and say I want to hand in a letter, and they let me do it. Actually, they're quite good to me, the police down in Westminster. They're my mates.
Well, if a website and everything, a campaign's drawn up showing this, we've already got the expert opinions of this from the legal people, which we've got hold of ourselves here. So if you then have this all drawn up so parents can understand and families can understand, then you can really start to educate people why those human rights aren't exercisable and start to campaign to do something about it instead of thinking, well, they're there, but they're not. So we need a campaign to change what's wrong so that we can actually do something with that law for the citizen and the child, because it's complete fallacy.
Right, well, when we write a letter, we start with writing a letter, but we don't write to the secretaries. You never go to them down there. You go to them up there, like we're up there, you know, Kev?
All right.
But no, we'll do that, Kevin. But I'd like to do that as soon as possible, if you've got time.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then I'll print it off and post it, first class and whatever.
I mean, we've got this message out at Trafalgar with that speech that we wrote for you. It was in that speech.
Yeah, Belinda's, because I was talking to you, Per. Belinda read the speech out.
I know, but I've seen it on the recording and she got it spot on. And
yeah.
Got it all out there. And that's like the start of educating people that you haven't got these rights because you can't exercise them. You see, you can write a law, but if you can't do anything with it, you can't apply for your rights under it. It's as if it's not there, isn't it, Maggie?
Well, we're actually, Stanley, who does all the YouTubes, it would be great if you actually did a YouTube with Stan and you got it out there.
It would be a good idea, yeah.
That's one way of doing it. Also is, if I get any funding, then we can set up a separate website, Children's Rights, you know, all what you've been speaking about, Kev.
And that would help you with that other idea you've got, Maggie, of safe houses for children, because then their rights under this, if there was a court, could be exercised. Whereas you're totally dependent on the state, the local authorities, child safeguarding and social services at the moment, and the courts, the domestic courts. If you could take the rights of any child to, an external court, then you can have an effect.
I also think that once I get the first safe house set up, I think that will help to bring change, because the media just may become more involved. I don't know why the media aren't doing more than they're doing, unless there's D notices slapped on them, Kevin.
Oh, they don't need D notices. Remember, they've got to survive by their business, their advertisers, everything around them. It's like anything. If they don't play ball to a certain extent in the so-called autonomies of things, then their business starts to suffer. And if they don't take any noticeable word in the ear, shall we say, and things like that, if they're going too far, then they do suffer in different ways. There are ways that can go on and on until you can have outright attacks on even newspapers and organisations if they don't toe the line beyond a certain point. But proving them is another matter. Proving them is another matter altogether, because it just looks natural. But the power of the establishment, shall we say, in the sense that they've got the fingers in everywhere, is what steers what we're seeing. It's what steers, like with the legal profession, what you can publish in a mainstream newspaper, because they've got a legal department that each writer has to go through his editor to for approval to publish that article. And that's why we see very little detail in what's happening with children, even to the point that you could publish more than you do in a mainstream newspaper without breaching the in-camera rule or any of the legislation. It's watered down to quite an extent anyway.
I think, though, that I'm an old-fashioned girl, and I think that computers are more people read news on computers, actually, and what's going on there. Because, of the way the financial situation is, you work out 50p a day, is like £3.50 a week for a newspaper every day. And people can't afford it. £3.50 a week would pay the gas bill or something, you see.
I think I pay £2 a week for my Times subscription to get it online, because the Times you've got to subscribe, but it's a good pay for you, see. So it's well worthwhile, to me, to actually do that. Plus, when you can go on the comments section, the crowd you get on there are more interested in having a debate, than some of the other papers. So you can actually debate things on there and that in a sensible way. So it's worth paying that £2 a week subscription,
Yeah. Well, have you got the grandparents involved over there as well?
What, in Ireland?
Yes.
The
grandparents and all the parents and single parents.
With this No campaign that is running at the moment, as far as the changes in the referendum coming in on the 10th of November, if they can't win a no vote, which removes the right of the child, actually. The campaign's growing all the time, but it's very difficult because the way the state and everyone involved in the state and everything are all in the yes camp. And they're all in the yes camp for a reason, that it benefits them in their future life. If they jumped into the no camp, they wouldn't have much of a prosperity in their future within the state organisations or anything. And don't forget, if they do get the yes vote in Ireland, then the gravy train of forced adoption starts. So everyone gets on the money, like they do in England, or do in the UK, Maggie. So there's a lot of people, not everyone, there's a lot of people in there that will be thinking, hang on a minute, this could be good.
Yeah.
In a selfish point of view.
Yeah. And
you've got judgmental people up there as well. Don't forget that really do, because they have elitist personality issues, where they're in denial about their own failings and a grandiose viewpoint when they're looking down at the rest of society. It's a kind of low empathy disorder, where they're looking at specific people in a low empathy way, but not at others. And these people have a very grand view and blame the rest of the masses for their own failings, when in reality the failings around children and state services is to do with the people that are running them, which are the very people that are blaming others.
Yeah.
What were you going to ask, Maggie?
Can we go on to... No, I was going to say you're going to disappear, I think, for a couple of minutes. Maybe Andrew will play a nice song again.
Oh, I will do, darling.
He's an old romancer, Kev. He's after my hundreds of thousands he thinks I'm going to get back next month from the fraudster.
Oh, is that it, Maggie?
Yeah, he's romancing me, the old sod.
I want to be her private secretary when she gets all these safe houses, that's all. I don't want a payment.
I thought Maggie was suggesting you becoming a toy boy.
His bum's too fat. Well, when we come back, Kev, can we go on to the contacts?
Yes, it's a good idea because there's more information coming out on the charges for contacts now, isn't there?
I've just now had a very important email in as well from another guy. I've got loads coming in, which I keep passing to John Hemming. So go and do what you're going to do.
Let's have the
Andrew?
news break and we'll talk about contact on the other side.
Are you ready, Andrew?
Ready, steady?
Go on then, off you go.
Don't forget our show on Friday night, one from 7 till 9. We're talking to a captain, Captain David Williams, and we're going to be talking. Sorry.
Len Lawrence?
No, sorry. I got something. Hang on, 2 seconds. I'm going to clear my throat. That's it. It nearly made me laugh because I was trying to speak and cough at the same time. Yeah, we're talking about whales and how they're being sort of killed by all that stuff I don't understand. The sonar stuff, the radio waves that they try to kill the whales off, the US and the UK Navy. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, so we're live now, Kev, if you want to join in.
Can I come in, Kev? Or do you want to go?
You come in, Maggie. You do come in.
Right, I want to discuss these contacts. I don't know how many people are listening out there, but I'm now finding out, and I've just had another email in as well, there's parents out there who are being charged from £50 per hour to have contact with the children that's been stolen from them. So parents are having the kids stolen, and they got to pay from £50 per hour in a contact centre. Now, again, John Hemming will be bringing this up in the House of Commons because no one knew about this until I picked up on it a few weeks ago.
It must be that, Maggie, an isolated case or 2 or 3 maybe.
No, it's not, Andrew. How could you sit there and say that?
Maggie, I'm having a debate. I'm not judging you what you're saying. Only because my situation, the social workers, they quite openly say, what transport do you need? That's bus, train, air. They give the money in advance and the hotel. Do you want dinner, bed and breakfast? Do you want B&B? How much do you want to spend at the bar? And I don't need to keep receipts, but I can prove my situation. On the other scale.
Is that true, what you've just said?
I don't lie, Maggie, especially on radio.
You do tell porcupines to me. Well, no, we have many. Right, listen to this, please. I've just had this in from yet another person. I'm not going to name him. My name is, say, Robert, and he lives in up north somewhere. I have been fighting my ex and the courts for 2.5 years for the right to have contact with my little girl. I've been passed on by a gentleman called, as I had a conversation with him about paying to see our kids. I have been blackmailed into paying not just hundreds of pounds, but thousands to see my own child for just a few hours. I've stood my ground and refused to pay this as I can simply not afford to. It's backfired and I've lost over a year of not seeing my little daughter. If you would like to hear about my experience and how much contact centres have wanted me to pay, I'm happy to tell you. My number is So that is yet another one just come in, and I've passed them all to John Hemming because he thinks it's so important. This now going on to research again.
Can I just comment back on that one before you go on, Maggie? I'm certain, because I've seen the articles, and I don't understand law anyway, but I've looked into the Children's Act, and I think it is discretionary from each council, but it does state somewhere in the Children's Act that every parent has the right, when the child is looked after, to a free contact session.
No, well, we're talking about parents who are in private proceedings.
Oh, private, that's probably different.
No, hold on. Stop interrupting and listening. And listen, I mean. they're private or they're the social services ones. And it's the social services ones, yet again, who are making the money. Have I lost you?
No, I'm just thinking, one case you told me about recently, he's private, and maybe that one is too.
No. Well, it could be. I shall speak to him after this radio station's finished. But no, we have, there's Adrian. Adrian was asked £50 an hour.
Oh, that's true, yeah. And he's looked after.
Yeah, and there's lots of other cases as well. And we've passed them all on to John Hemming and to Channel 4 because they think it's outrageous. And they probably might do something on it. But we need, if there's anyone out there listening, can you please contact Andrew, Kevin, or myself with any information or evidence you may have with regards to paying to see your child in care, or, you know, if it's with another parent on any supervised visit. Very, very important, this information, because you see, in Australia, I'm not sure, I haven't got to America yet, but in Australia, every parent has to pay to see their child in care. And that's in Australia. Again, I've passed it to John. So it seems, you know, England's always sort of been like America. Whatever they do, oh, good old England follows on. But it seems to be Australia as well. You know, so it is over here. And basically, I think what it is when they've stolen a child, they don't want that child to have any contact whatsoever with the family. They don't want the family involved. Now, when you come to a contact with your child, should you get contact, that is, in a contact centre, you're in a room about 10 foot by 10 foot. Supervisor sitting there writing down every word that you and that child might be saying. So there's no way that that child can say it's being abused, it's being this, it's being that. Because I know firsthand, if a child reports any sort of abuse, contact is pulled, and that Maggie Tuttle said this and Maggie Tuttle said that, or Andrew said this and Kevin, you know? So they write down all these allegations and contact stopped. Now, the courts, even in the closed family courts, the judges can give contact to a grandparent or father or mother or parents. But the social services pull that contact. So that child has no family left. And again, something else happened where two people came together from the same social services with the same identical information for the contact. It's amazing. It's like whoever teaches them, or they just learn from each other, but it's their own rules. And when you say to them that the court gave permission, they say, oh, well, we can overrule the courts. And they can say to the judge, well, Tom, Dick, or Harry was being naughty, and they were doing this and that on contact. And so it goes on, you see. So those children, they cannot report an abuse. At school, if they report being abused by the foster carer or whoever in the care system, the schools take no notice, and if they did, they just tell the social worker. A child can tell its friend, but where's the friend going to say? Who to? So a child in the care system has no way of reporting being abused. If he reports an abuse on care, the contact stopped.
Therefore, no human rights, and that's what we've been talking about.
That comes back to what Kevin said, yes.
But Maggie, the haven for paedophiles is state care of children, and the reason is this: paedophiles obviously want to perpetrate what they're doing and get away with it, to carry on doing it. Yeah. Now, if a child is with the parents and the child speaks to the parents about someone who is coaching them or someone who is harming them, then the parents do something about it because they have an instinctive protective feeling around the children, their child, and of course they're going to do something. So a child that's with parents, if a paedophile makes approaches, is obviously going to run quite a risk there. But when a child is in foster care or in care of the state in an institution, the behaviour of the state when a child is harmed or potentially harmed is in the line of pretending nothing's happening, of covering it up so that the state image is not damaged. So this is why we hear so little about institutionalised abuse while the children are in care, and about abuse in foster care and paedophilia, when it's going off all the time, because we know it's going off all the time, because we talk to the survivors, we bring them on the shows, I talk to them in counselling. It's happening all the time, but it's suppressed by social services and the state because they don't want to be viewed as failing to this degree, that they're failing worse than the parents they took the children from in the first place. So the poor kids, if they speak about abuse, are suppressed. Not just abuse, if there's an accident around a child, the child is suppressed in that situation, so it can't get back to the birth family.
Well, that's like a little boy who was sitting on the beach. Don't ask me where the foster woman was, because the person didn't tell me. But their grandchild was on the beach making sandcastles. Group of guys came by, kicked down the sandcastles. The little timid boy said, "Why did you do that?" He was badly beaten up, rushed to hospital, and then he was made, in fear, to say that he had started the fight. It was he who started it. There was a cover-up. And the father, as far as I'm aware, is trying to discover why. But the other thing, Kevin, are you aware that the system, they have to carry, or they don't have to, but they do, that every kid in care has an insurance. There's a Simon, I can't think of his other name, Simon, who used to work in the banks, etc. He goes around the country now, a bit like Brian Gerrish, and he said, "Maggie, they are making millions and millions out of the insurances. What happens to the kids who go missing and never ever returned, or kids that are murdered or whatever? Who claims the insurance money on those kids?"
I wouldn't know at all, Maggie. Getting hold of that information must be a nightmare.
Oh, well, it's a fact. Well, the thing is, it's all out there, but it's getting it, as you say, and it takes a time to get, recently. Oh, yeah, going back to that child, the father said to the social workers, who is the insurance company that's used by your council that covers the children? And they wouldn't say. They wouldn't tell him. They said, "We're not at liberty to tell you." So that in itself shows you there isn't an insurance. So did a little boy have a bad accident and the social workers claimed the money from the insurance? Who knows what's going on? This is why we need top researchers. And we need a lot going on. Because it's like you said, these kids in care, from fear, there's no one they can turn to. And this is why we need the safe houses. Why, if I can get a safe house set up, or many of them throughout the country, my God, will we hear the truth from those children. And not one child will leave a safe house without having a Mackenzie friend, so that they have someone every week they can report to. It's going to be hard getting past Ofsted and that, but I'm a cow anyway, and they know that. So we'll...
Obviously, children that run away and maybe running away from abuse, so I think you'll have a fight on your hands with social services. They won't want this coming out at any cost, because children in state care being abused is not good news for the state. So that will be an interesting one, Maggie. You may meet some resistance, but I hope you're successful in that area.
Well, I can say this, I'm allowed, but the social services know what a cow I am, and that's why they had me investigated, and they put a gagging order on me, and they said, "Maggie Tuttle, if you speak out again, you will go to prison for 7 years." So they put me under threat. So by doing that, not only to me, but to other families and whatever, yeah, there's a black market there with our children. So it's a big old fight, I'm afraid. But It's not going to happen overnight, Kev.
Well, it isn't. All that's going on, I mean, obviously we're trying to get the message out. It is going on. It's not conspiracy theorist stuff. We're trying to get hold of all the evidence. But unless you have an active role in this, unless you've got a role where you're working in the field as an advocate, or you're seeing all the information behind the scenes, what's really going on with the parents, or you've become involved in this by being drawn into it, maybe they've gone for your own children or grandchildren, you don't really have a clue. The scale of this is so different from what we presented through the mainstream media. The mainstream media present the state as if they're angels. Nothing ever goes wrong. Well, of course they do. They do it in every area. But the poor kids are paying the price because the state wanting to present itself as hunky-dory and an angel means the children don't have a voice with the state.
Never have.
They never have, and they never will be. And that's why they're suppressed in proceedings, why children are suppressed by social workers or guardians speaking for them, or anyone speaking for them that's on the gravy train, rather than the child themselves. And that's why Gillett competence is blocked in every way for the child, so that they can't allow, so the child isn't allowed to speak to the judge in chambers and methods like that. They really are restricted.
There's a 16-year-old girl, and the judge will not let her have the Gillett competence rules to go home to daddy, and she's 16. Coming 16, she is. That's it. Sorry. So yeah, that goes. Yeah, it's right what you say. But
no,
I mean, go on, Kev. Sorry.
You know, when we have children that are 15, 16, they're clearly Gillett competent, and these are the barriers of the gravy train again. Technically, if they're Gillett competent, it's pretty obvious once they're over 12, and providing they haven't got any learning difficulty or anything that would set them at a younger age, most children are going to be Gillett competent to know enough to know what they want and who they want to be with, and what really, you know, if there is any risk to them, it can be explained to them, and et cetera, et cetera. And we get kids as old as 15, coming on 16, who escape from being held in secure units because they've escaped up to 70 odd times. So they keep them in secure units to stop them escaping, you know, because they're unhappy, they want to go back to mummy and daddy. And when these children have appeared from time to time, we get a first-hand explanation of what's going off behind the scenes, including pin down and everything else. And part of this is then a process of trying to get help for that child, where that child, because they can't really go back to mum or dad, because immediately the children come, and as we've seen on YouTube videos, the police are called by social services, they come in with social services, and they either drag the children off against their will, even though they're Gillett competent, and in some cases we've seen the YouTube videos where they actually handcuff the children to drag them off because they won't go with the police.
Yeah.
And we see young children being handcuffed that are clearly Gillett competent. It's appalling. Now, what's supposed to happen is the voice of the child. And it clearly isn't. It's being gagged by the state. Even the police force are gagging the child to get them back behind the scene again so that they don't have a voice. So they take them off in handcuffs so they can't have a voice. They don't listen to them.
Well, I've been told... Sorry, Kev.
Then when they're in behind the scenes, they've got them away. But on the odd occasion, Maggie, this is the important thing. A child that's Gillett competent has the right to engage its own solicitor.
I know.
We've got children who have been 15 years of age who have gone to solicitors, state solicitors, to engage them. And we've had the odd occasion when it's been successful, but we've had other occasions where state solicitors have turned around to the child and said that I can't do that unless you ask social services first. So in other words, they're pushing the child back into care by having to ask social services permission, which they don't need to, as to whether they will even engage them engage with them as a legal, solicitor. Now, the problem with this, by pushing a child back, they haven't got the protection because they're not engaged with that lawyer at all. So immediately they are taken back in behind the scenes and their voice is snuffed out again. So their chance to engage a lawyer while they're on the run from social services is lost. And it's atrocious. It's absolute corruption of everyone involved, but not every party. There are solicitors who do try to do things the right way, but there are those that aren't. But the longer the gravy train goes on, Maggie, the lower the quality of the people involved. There are more and more lawyers saying, well, I'm leaving family law. I'll go and do something else because they're so disgusted. And there are more and more lawyers that are of the ilk that will take money from anywhere that are getting more involved in family law and are willing to do whatever to get on the gravy train. And it's like anything. If you start a gravy train, then the corruption happens because it's in secrecy, and you get, like in any group of people, you've got good and bad, and you're left with just the bad ones running the show.
That's the same with social workers. Oh, the good ones are leaving very quickly.
Because they can't do their job properly. I've heard the term, I'm leaving to be more effective elsewhere, because they're so tied up from doing their job properly. So we haven't got all bad people. This is the thing that you must remember. We haven't got all bad people. We've got less and less good people and more bad people as this goes on, yes. But that's because the good people are leaving.
I think the stealing of the children is with the social workers, though. Because if the social workers don't take children, who then pass them to the foster agencies to be passed to the foster carers, then there's no children and there's no business.
To be passed to the abusers, Maggie.
Yeah, the abusers, that's right. But I have heard, I have to contact Teresa Cooper or John Hemming to find out more, that the government are setting up new offices so that children from the care system who want to sue the government because they were abused in care first have to get permission from the government. And if the government say no, you cannot sue, you've got no chance. But then again, if a kid does get the right to sue, got to go via a solicitor, haven't they? So what chance have you got again? We need Guy Fawkes back.
I've got 4 comments on that one, not just one, but 4. Number 1, the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority, it's been around for 30-odd years, giving compensation to any crime, but in this case, abuse. You can't claim money if you live with your abuser. And that's not just if your mum and dad abused you sexually or mentally or whatever. If you was in care and that member of staff lived in the care home. I mean, that's the first one. That's terrible. Second point, no, I think I've only got 2. When you say about Guy Fawkes, Maggie, and Kev touched on it earlier, now, on November the 5th, we've got Operation Jubilee. Everybody from Critical Mass will know what that's about. It's a surprise. It's a wake-up call to the government. That's all I'm going to say. And then after that, it's V for Vendetta, anonymous in the masses, going to Parliament. So you never know, Maggie. It might be Guy Fawkes after all.
Well, Andrew, you told me a month ago that I was to be dressed up with the beard and everything as Guy Fawkes.
Oh, you can if you want. What you like.
I told you he puts me in promised land all the time.
I know. I don't know. I think they're hoping that they're not going to need to use an effigy and probably use David Cameron instead.
Oh, David Cameron. He promised all the grandparents the rights if he got in. Bastard him. So, I don't know, we just... we need to get the social workers. Do you know a lot of the social workers are from Romania, Africa, India, and a lot of them, I can't say how, but we are getting the evidence, have been brought in as social workers illegally and got their jobs illegally. And, you know, I know of one social worker who stood in the court and said, oh no, I no understand the English, I no understand. And yet, that was a social worker who has taken many children away on lies.
It's just
stands in a court and says she does no understanding English. That's you know.
It is so much a racket, and social services can get away with so much before the courts. It's beyond belief at times what judges will wear. You know, they just go and align with social services as another area of the state. You've got the judge, who is effectively the establishment of the state. You've got social workers and the local authority who are the establishment of the state. The guardian is the establishment in the state. The solicitor representing the child or the guardian is the establishment in the state as a legal aid solicitor. And your own representation, if you've got a legal aid solicitor, is employed by the establishment in the state. Is it little wonder the cases don't fare too well for parents? You know, and finish up 400 cases of children, you know, being judged and taken by orders against every one that's returned to the family.
I do know of the odd child who's been returned to the family after being away for some years, young children I'm talking about. And according to the parents or the grandparents, these children have been returned in dreadful states, in fear, dreadful states. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. It's worse than sending a kid to war, apparently, how they come back. And to give them the love and support is 24/7. It's constant talking to them, and you see a child a child needs love and hugs and stories and playing and running and being naughty. I love naughty children, because naughty children, that's how they learn, because adults tell them, be good. Doing that is naughty. You tell them in a nice way, you know. So these children have no affection at all. And there's many people have been told you are not to give your child, if you have contact, affection, because that child is of an adolescent's age where it's embarrassing for them. And we will allow you to give the child one hug, either when it arrives or when it leaves. No affection, no affection. So children coming from the system, of course you've got a lot of girls, maybe 12, 13, you know, ending up pregnant or whatever. They're looking for love. Same as young boys are looking for love, you know. They don't know what it is.
Maggie, one of the reasons we lost our contact with our daughter was because every time we met her, every time we left her, we was all crying our eyes out, and we was emotionally damaging her. And according to the state, she had to go in a special unit because of that, and we've not seen her in 6 years because of that. Yeah. But still, we're here to fight another day.
You know, I can only say to you guys, I'm of the old school, and I was taught what goes around comes around, and God pays his debts in strange ways.
Yeah, it's going to end the world on the 21st of December.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what, it's a terrible thing to say, but seeing, I mean, I've been worldwide seeing the children suffering in the country since I was 19, Andrew. I mean, the children in Ethiopia, the spider children, nobody's ever heard of them. The spider children, oh, it's terrible. If I had a wish, I would wish not one child to ever be born on this earth again. If I wasn't allowed that wish, I would wish for the earth to end, because it's so corrupt. The young man speaking earlier about victims, or what was it, Andrew? Compensation?
Yeah.
If you've been defrauded, there is no way there's any compensation for you at all. There is nowhere to go. It's like the children. Fraud is different. But if you've been defrauded in this country, you cannot go anywhere. And if you phone up the victims' compensation in Scotland, they'll say to you, oh no, fraud is a civil matter. It's not a crime. And yet you can go to the FSA, let's say, or another organisation, and it's a crime. So you go back to Scotland and they say, no, it's not a crime. You don't know where you are in the bloody system. And it's the same for all these poor children lost. The lost children. You see, waffled again, haven't I, guys?
No, you haven't.
No, darling, no. I mean, when you talk about lost children, when you look at the statistics for state child protection services losing children, it's unbelievable. In Ireland, the figures are, I can't remember the exact figures, but close to 500 children have been lost over a period, I think, of about, I think it's getting on towards 20 years now, but it's still a large number, that 500 children are completely lost. They don't know where they are.
Well, that's all right, because no doubt the social services claimed on the insurance.
Well, the trouble is these children have been trafficked across the world. Some children were discovered being trafficked in by a lawyer in Mexico in February this year. This was another story that was covered. Irish children were being trafficked in Mexico and sold.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a copy of that story if you want it, Maggie, in print. And
Kevin.
you supplied me that story, darling, didn't you?
Yeah, you see, Andrew, he's going mad. I'm a researcher, he forgets.
Thank you, Maggie.
That's all right.
But that isn't that a prime example of what we've got, that there is real evidence of this trafficking going on, but it's hard to get hold of it, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, the Chinese, is it the Chinese or the Japanese? Well, it's all over the world anyway, you know. There's an article I read today which said there's millions and millions and millions of children worldwide are trafficked, sold, paedophiles and whatever. Millions of them. And why isn't it nobody's doing anything? Amazing, isn't it? It's the people en masse, really. But then the people will say, oh, well, what can I do? I'm only one person. And it really doesn't affect me. And you think, oh, yeah, right, okay, you know.
Well, I can tell you that from a counsellor's point of view, then people's profiles and behaviours indicate what they're potentially capable of under certain circumstances. And you only need to listen to what people's views are and things like that. And when you listening to you, Maggie, you clearly care. You're a caring person, you're empathic, and most of us that do this are the same. But when you listen to someone like David Cameron or party members around him, and they're devoid of empathy for other people at all together. They're very selfish. They're
David, when David Cameron, I must come in here because I get so annoyed. David Cameron lost a child in death. And I can't remember how I worded it. Short and sweet and to the point. I said, on behalf of all the grandparents and parents, you know, accept our condolences. Sadly to say, and this is a bit, but we're sadly to say, perhaps you will now realise that by losing a child in death, you will know how we feel losing our children in a system set up by government in a child's best interest. And that's what I wrote to the old bastard.
Well, I know, but the problem with David Cameron, he never seems to learn anything empathic from us, because it wasn't so long ago he lost his child, left his child and lost his child in a pub, as if it was his Filofax. And the pair of them didn't realise what they'd done. So
well, darling, you know why? Because they're using taxpayers' money from our kids to take themselves down the pub and then pay for all their security. Our money.
They're all on the gravy train, aren't they? With their expenses and everything else they do. And they don't want to give it up under any circumstances. They're selfish that are doing this. And the present attack we're seeing out there, remember, look at the media coverage, particularly the Daily Mail, which is atrocious now. It used to be an excellent paper, the Daily Mail. It really is a Cameron and Royalist paper that is used to attack the everyday citizen and hold them responsible for as almost a distraction from the real extortion and corruption around money with bankers and MPs and everyone that's on the gravy train. That is hardly published. It disappears very quickly if it does. But you're constantly seeing every day
the papers using, not the general papers, the Daily Mail is the awful one really, they're constantly having a go at individuals and picking up just the odd case to stigmatise the lower classes all the time, to hammer it, to try and convince Joe Public that that's where the money's going. Someone has perhaps being stigmatised because they're unemployed or they're disabled. It's all in there, attacking the poor, attacking the pensioner. God, it's terrible, really, Maggie, because I thought we got past this 20 years ago. Now it's back again.
But what they do, Kevin, is they throw at the public things like, it doesn't matter who you call. Oh, I'm watching Coronation Street. Can I call you back? Oh, I'm watching the EastEnders. Oh, I'm watching... there's all these different programs which are representing, or supposedly representing, the Joe Blogs, the public. And this is what we all are supposed to be, like Coronation Street. Well, I never watch the programs. I don't watch television anyway. I don't have time. But I know of them, and I hear about them and whatever. And, I mean, there's a recent... it's been in the papers recently, was it at Coronation Street or EastEnders, where a social worker was going to take a baby away, and all hell's let loose over that program of what the social worker did. Yeah. I did send you the info, Kev.
EastEnders. EastEnders,
Maggie.
Andrew knows, he watches it.
I do.
Oh, are you disgusting man, you. How could you? You don't have to watch these programs. You just have to know in the streets, go in the streets, and you see life, you know? But this is what they want everybody to believe. It's like the Jeremy Kyle show and all those tattooed, alcoholic, drunken, whatever people. 9 out of 10 of them sit on the television. They don't even know who the father is of their child. We've got girls opening their legs as if they're little dollies. These girls have got to be taught, stop it. Stop producing children. If you do have a child, know it's who the father is. Don't go to the Jeremy Kyle and do what they're all doing. You know, again, it's like, oh, this is what society's like, and this is why social workers have got a hard job. This is the sort of people they're dealing with. They're just putting the nation down, and it has to stop. Stop watching Coronation Street. Andrew, if I hear you're watching EastEnders, kick up the arse.
I've got a kick, I've got a slap, I can't wait.
I don't know. Yeah, Maggie, obviously, I'm 57, so I've been around a long time, but God, what a difference in society, isn't it? You know, what we're looking at today to when we look at perhaps when we're in our teens or as children, when we were brought up in a society that was much more empathic and caring about each other, with much more of a sense of community in those days, all those years ago. And if you could go back in time in the TARDIS and sort of go back to that time and everyone's awareness of what it was and what their expectations were, and then drop this forced adoption racket in the middle of it, people would go berserk at the concept of it. It's just a slippery slope to over the decades to it, and they're getting away with it. And during that time, people's minds are switching off to it because they can't face it, and they're distracting themselves with, like you say, EastEnders or whatever, their Facebook or anything, to keep their minds off it. Because to face it and to accept its reality, if they've got kids, means their kids are just in the queue for it. They're coming for them. So that's why they attack parents. One of the reasons is projection, because they can't face the fact that if this is true, that means their children are just about to appear on the radar at any time, and they could become a target.
Well, I'd just like to say I don't know how many people are listening or who will listen at a later time. But I beg, not on my behalf, I beg on behalf of the children of this country, children worldwide, please, all you listeners, start talking to each other. Get information, get research, pass it on to Kevin, myself, or to Andrew. No, Andrew's watching EastEnders, sorry.
But you ain't, Mrs. Tuttle.
Kevin or myself, I think. But please, the nation rise up, and all you people over in Ireland, Southern Ireland, Stop that bill going through. Save the children. Not the charity Save the Children. They're corrupt.
They've managed to create a yes campaign on it being the rights of the child, the referendum yes vote. Of course, it's exactly the opposite. A yes vote removes the right of the child, the only exercisable way by the parent or the guardian, by making the state the parent. And once it makes the state the parent, then the rights, the idea of human rights is to hold them up against state bodies and organisations. It's not about other individuals. That's normal domestic law. So, of course, the rights of the child in human rights have gone, because with the state as parent, it's not going to take a case against itself. So if a child's abused in institutionalised care, if this is successful and a yes vote brings this awful thing, the child's voice is going to be suppressed by the state as parent, because it will choose to protect its image over that of the rights of the child and the child's suffering.
Yep. Yeah. Got about a minute to go, guys. So final thoughts?
Vote no in the referendum in Ireland. That's my final thought.
Yeah, vote no.
10th of November.
Vote no, yeah. Maggie?
My thought is I'm Guy Fawkes on November the 5th.
Yeah, mine too. I'll be there with you and bring the children home very soon. You've been listening to the Earth News Rebel Show with me, Andy Peacher, Kevin Ball and lovely Maggie Tuttle. And we'll be back Friday night, 7 till 9, and we'll talk about the whales in the Pacific.